Hello, welcome to Introduction to the Book of Revelation, chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2 and chapter 3 deals with letters to the 7 churches. All these 7 churches are located in Asia Minor, present-day Turkey. These are letters specifically written to these churches from Jesus himself. Every church in these chapters addresses issues relevant to believers today. And the interesting part of these 2 chapters is that out of the 7 churches, only 1 church was good. The spiritual application is true until today. I would say until the day of Jesus Christ. Still relevant, still applicable. And so we can't just read and ignore, but we got to read, apply, and fix up where we need to fix up as a church. Remember the church, we are the church. The church is not a building, we are a church. So these are the 7 churches and their meanings. The first church is Ephesus, and it means fully persuaded. The second church is Smyrna, and it means bitter perfume. The third church is Pergamum, or Pergamus, which means bitter marriage. The fourth church is Thyatira, which means an order of affliction. The fifth church is Sardis, and Sardis means red one. The sixth church is Philadelphia, which means brotherly love. The seventh church is Laodicea, which means right of the people. All these 7 churches have something in common. Number 1, similarity. They all begin with special title for Jesus, who is the author. So every letter is addressed to the pastor or the angel of each church. Not the members, but the pastor of the church. So pastors have a work to do because we are accountable for every soul that is under us. All begin with Jesus knowing their works, the works of each church. All letters to the 7 churches contain commendation, complaint, or both. And then there's a reward at the end. In other words, Jesus talks about, what you will gain for doing what is required of you, what you will lose out on if you don't stick by what is required of you, what is expected of you as a believer. There are rewards and there are consequences. Do you want rewards or do you want consequences? Do you want the blessing of God or do you want the wrath of God? Do you want the judgment of God or do you want the mercy of God? You got to choose. Every letter that is written to these 7 churches, each one of them closes with an allusion, which is a reference to the second coming of Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. All closes with a special promise or reward to every believer that overcomes. Overcomes what? The temptation of life. Overcomes what? The temptation of the devil himself. Overcomes what? The world. Overcomes what? This Babylonian system. As believers, we must do whatever we can to overcome the Babylonian system. If not, we'll be swallowed with it. So anyone who plans to get right with God, there is a promise, there is a reward, and it is spelled out in these 7 letters. Every single letter ends with this statement: he who has an ear, let him hear. If you can hear, hear well. If you can see, see well. Don't just hear physically, hear spiritually. Don't just see physically, see spiritually. Every recommendation, every complaint, every reward, or every promise applies to believers today. It depends on what category you fall in. If you're under the category of the loveless church, whatever he talks about in the loveless church applies to you. If you fall under the category of the corrupt church, whatever recommendation, whatever reward, whatever promise, whatever complaint he had at that time applies to you today. So it's time for us to delve into the first letter written to the church in Ephesus, which is the loveless church. The question you have to ask yourself after hearing what God has to say about the loveless church is, have I lost my first love? Are you still in love with God, or have you fallen out of love?